And welcome to the Vision Alignment Show, where we talk about how important it is for us all to know our personal core goals, our core vision, our core beliefs, core strengths need to be aligned with our company's vision, with whatever vision we have, a vision we have of ourselves, a vision we have of the others. So that is why it's so important for us all to have that understanding, because we all have blindness in our lives. If we can understand that blindness, and we can take those blinders off at times and put those blinders on at times, because if you have blinders on, then you're focused on your vision, and that's what it's all about. We've got a great show coming up for you for the rest of the week, but I'm not going to go into that right now. I'm going to talk about who we have coming on today. So we've got a big time special guest, and without any further ado, I want to bring on Mr. Scott McKain.
Hey, Brian, good morning. It's really great to be with you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us. This is great.
Great.
So tell me, when is your first recollection of knowing your vision?
You know, that's such a great question. I know that's one that you ask, and I've been thinking about it. And I was it was the summer between my 8th grade and freshman year in high school. And we had a junior FFA chapter, Future Farmers of America. And FFA changed my life growing up in Crothersville, Indiana. And I was on the next to the last row at Loeb Playhouse at Purdue University. And they had a guest speaker named Jim Beard who got up and spoke. And not only was I moved by his presentation, it was the first time in my life I had heard a speaker, other than the minister of our local church or, that kind of thing. And I thought, man, there could not be anything better than that. And that was the first time that I thought, wow, giving speeches, I didn't even know you could make a living doing it. I didn't even know it was a career possibility. I just knew that somehow that was something that I wanted to do. So that was my first glimpse of, the vision that I had for my life. Awesome. So that's a great question. I hadn't thought about that for a long time, but it's a great question. It makes you reflect, and I've often wondered, Brian, what would happen if I wouldn't have gone to that meeting? What would have happened if I would have not, you wonder about all these little things that happen in your life and how sometimes you don't realize that they can even change the nature and the direction of your life. It's really incredible.
If you want to hear more, stay right there. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Thank you, Scott. Before we go much farther, I want to encourage our listeners to put in a picture of your timeline of you winking. And that winking, it begins to have you think about what makes you unique, because I know what makes me unique, and it's not my eye. What makes me unique is my positive personality. I'm able to share my story with other people in order to have a lasting impact on their lives. So think about that as you're taking your picture of you winking. I wonder what makes me unique. That's where you're all going to start to learn. So again, share this video out with as many people as you can think of. I really appreciate you all doing that. And so if you put that picture in your timeline, you're going to be entered into a raffle to win a free copy of my book, and it'll be signed. And it's a copy of this book that I wrote. It's called "Sometimes It Does Take a Brain Surgeon." So anyway, Scott, thank you so much for being on today.
Oh, it's a privilege. Thanks for having me, Brian. Thank you. I appreciate what you do, and I appreciate your show, and it's great to be your guest this morning. Thank you.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about your vision. And so your vision is to speak to people, but it goes beyond that, right?
Yeah, it does. That's the thing. I was inspired by a speaker, but I was too young at that point to realize that it's more than a performance. That's what separates speakers from actors is that we get the privilege of performing our content and delivering, the insights that we may have about how you can be more productive in business or in life or whatever it might be. And so it took a whole lot of life experiences to get me to the point that I had something to say. But in the early days, both as a student and in the early days of my speaking business, I was probably more like giving book reports, what somebody else had experienced in something that I'd read, as opposed to having the life experience to talk about my own. But you're exactly right. I mean, it takes a while, and that's one of the interesting things about, a vision, is that it allows you to kind of begin with the end in mind, as Stephen Covey said, but yet you have a lot of work to make that vision a reality. And you need to, both apply yourself and work hard and get some breaks along the way and all of those things that make success possible. But I don't think you ever get there without a vision of where you want to be, without some kind of crystallized idea in your mind that you're able to see what you'd like to accomplish. And I want to add one more thing real quick. I didn't mean to give you a speech here this morning, but and the other thing is I think you have to keep looking forward. I think I've had the privilege of interviewing a lot of really, really successful people. And one of the things I've always found, like my buddies in the entertainment business have had, huge #1 hits and platinum records and things like that. And they always get excited and say, hey, listen to what we've recorded that's new. And they don't constantly want to play greatest hits. They want to keep creating. And I've learned so much from that, because I think for all of us, it is that we have to keep looking forward and keeping our vision somewhere beyond where we are.
No, that's good. So I don't want to glance over it, and because I've had other conversations with you in the past where we've talked, and you've told the story about FFA, and I've never said this to you before, but I actually was an FFA member, right?
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that. How cool!
My freshman year in high school. So I had 7 older brothers and 2 older sisters.
Oh, but
so a big family.
Yeah.
But most of my brothers, and they were all on the farm for the most part, and most of them were in FFA, and just VOAG was one of those things where we all did it. So I went into the first year because I wasn't sure what I was going to do. My mom wanted me college educated. She didn't want me to stay on the farm, so she had higher expectations for me, or different expectations, maybe not higher. But I remember I got entered in. I don't know how, but to say the Green Hand Pledge.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, the creed speaking contest, of course.
Yeah, the creed. I believe in the future of farming.
With a faith born not of words but of deeds, achievements won by the present past generations of agriculturalists, to the promise of better days through better ways, even as the greater things we now enjoy come to us through the struggles of former years. Yes, I not that I still remember that or anything. It's one of the most beautifully written pieces about belief out there. Yeah, it's great. So how'd you do it? How'd you do in the contest? Did you?
I think I took second. But or not. No, it wasn't a second. It was I forget the different levels.
Right.
But yeah, I was not the best. But that's kind of where my speaking career started.
Yeah.
I never really thought of it that way, but yeah.
Well, by the way, I never won the state public speaking contest. Matter of fact, my senior year, I finished last. So that's a story I tell FFA students. Is that you learn through the effort more than the accomplishment. The effort is more important than where you place, because what happened was, for me, was that not winning what was my #1 goal, to win the state public speaking contest. That's what really drove me to run for state FFA president. I thought, well, I've already lost this. I got to go all in on the office, and it's getting elected to that office that really, started my speaking career and changed everything for me. So I get it. I mean, I didn't win either, and I know exactly where you're coming from. But look what it did. I mean, and I think that's one of the things as we get older that we tend to forget maybe a little bit is that, John Maxwell wrote a book about failing forward, that it's okay to fail as long as you keep failing forward. And I've always loved that analogy because I think that's true for us throughout life is that, we don't have to take first prize, but it is the continuing to advance and continuing to move forward that makes the difference for us.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's John Maxwell is another great writer and, phenomenal resource to draw from because all of his leadership books are phenomenal.
Just the best. Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. Wow. That's, I have so many questions that I want to ask you.
Great. I'll try not to give such long answers. I get excited talking to you, Brian. So thank you.
This is great. So you grew up in Caruthersville, Indiana?
Yeah, it's about 30 miles or so north of Louisville, Kentucky on Interstate 65, little small town, about 1,500 people.
Wow. So there's a place in Indiana, my nephew or my niece now lives. It's called Poseyville. So it's probably not.
Yeah.
You know that?
Yeah, it's closer to Evansville than it's southern Indiana, but it's closer to Evansville. We were closer to Louisville. But yeah, it's we call it's God's country down there. It's so funny because people think of Indiana and they think of flat farmland, and northern Indiana is that way.
Yeah,
southern Indiana is very hilly and very, very different than northern Indiana. So yeah, Poseyville I know very well.
Well, that's great. So let's go back to vision. So talk about your vision and in terms of not only what you see now, but what do you see in the future?
For myself or for how would you define that, Brian?
For yourself.
Well, the thing of it is that I've got more books I want to write, more speeches I want to give after the pandemic has passed, more ways that I hope I can help entrepreneurs and business people and organizations stand out. I mean, as you know, my primary topic is on distinction. What does it take to separate yourself from the competition? How do you deliver the ultimate customer experience? And so, I just get tremendously excited about new projects and new ways to do that. I mean, look at what we're doing right now, Brian. I mean, you're there and I'm here. I'm in Las Vegas. You're in Ohio, and
yeah.
We're communicating with people potentially all over the world right now. I mean, that was never possible before. So I think what happens is, it's the core of the vision is how do you communicate to help in the areas of your expertise? I mean, that's my, but the tools that we're using continue to excite me about where this could go, and what's possible. So, I mean, that's my goal is I think if you, and I know there's some folks that go, okay, I've done what I'm going to do. And I want to do this forever. My goal and my vision is to continue to, if you believe in your message, why wouldn't you want to continue to share it?
Yeah, no, that's good. And for the audience out there, if you have questions, by all means, put them in the comments and chat box. We'd love to hear about any questions you might have. But Scott, I've got a question, and it's kind of a hard question. But what do you think is the biggest factor in your success?
Wow, what a great question.
These aren't softballs, I know.
Brian, I'm quoting a lot of other folks today, but it struck me when you said that. Malcolm Gladwell, wrote about the importance of putting in your 10,000 hours. And it doesn't matter when it happens, but I don't think there's any success without putting in the time. It bothers me when I see all these things about life hacks and, the easy way to do this and that. And, I think we can learn from other people's experience. We can shorten the learning curve. There's no doubt about that. But there's not going to be a weekend course that teaches me how to become a guitar virtuoso. There's not going to be a boot camp that's going to make me a concert pianist. And that's true whether it's music or sports or speaking or whatever it is. So when you ask this, for me, and that's why I bring up FFA, because I was so committed to those speaking contests. I don't remember a single night in high school other than, prom night, basically. I don't remember a single night that I didn't stand alone in my bedroom. I turned on a little recorder and practiced speaking. And I did it just like some kids would practice playing a musical instrument or practice basketball. I practiced speaking every night. I would do two things. I would give a prepared speech into the recorder. And the other thing I would make myself do is I'd stand in the room and I would pick out something in the room and make myself give a 5-minute speech on it. So I'd make myself give a 5-minute speech on a coat hanger, or I'd make myself give a 5-minute speech on a keychain and relate it to a topic like leadership or, FFA or whatever I was involved in at the time. And it was not only good training for speaking, it was good training for thinking. How do you think on your feet? How do you, and the other part was I was so fortunate. I got a full-time job as a disc jockey starting on my 14th birthday. Now you can't do that today, right? But I mean, you could do that. So I went to work directly from school, until I was 16. My mom picked me up at school, drove me the 8 miles to the radio station. I went on the air and worked 4 to 9 every night on the radio.
Wow.
And so that combination of, you turn the mic on and you better have something to say, and you better say it well. And so that combination of the practice of speaking every day and the great fortune that I had. And the funny thing was people say, well, you've got a radio voice. Not when you're 14. When you're a guy and you're 14, your voice is changing. I would call the high school basketball games and go, "There's the shot. It's good." The voice would crack. Oh, it was terrible. It was horrible. So one of the lines, and it's not original to me, one of the lines I've heard that I think is so true is you have to be willing to be bad at something before you can ever be good at something. You have to be willing to be bad at. I was my first speeches were horrible. I'm glad, I'm glad that we didn't have cameras on our cell phones then that people could record and there'd be a record of how bad some of that early stuff was. But I think that's, if there's a key, that would be it, that, I put in the time.
So, and that's a struggle for me. So I came from an IT job, and I went back to, and this is more coaching. I think I'm asking you questions than anything, but, I got into the speaking career late. I've only been in it 4 years, but it's been hard to get started. So if you were to tell me anything, you would just say, keep doing what I'm doing, or keep doing it better, or keep trying to make it better.
One of the pieces of advice I got from my mentor, this was 1981. he said, take a sheet of paper and divide it into the months and into the years. And every month, write down how much you made from speaking that month. And he said, but this sheet won't really matter to you until like 5 years from now. And I'm like, well, why would I do this sheet now if it's not going to matter for 5 years? I wanted to get on with it, right? And he said, because day to day, you won't think that you're making much progress. But 5 years from now, you'll go back and you'll see where your months 5 years ago were this, and then a year later they were a little better, and a year later they were a little better. And so it really struck me that it's taken the long view. It is that, and that's, speaking is a very easy business to get into, and there's a lot of businesses like this. If I was to get a website and put a plaque outside my door and say Scott McKain, doctor, they'd come get me. I can't claim to be that. I can't claim Scott McKain, attorney. I haven't gone to law school. I haven't passed the bar. But anybody can put a thing up and say I'm a speaker. And there are other professions that are that way as well. So I'm not just speaking directly to speakers now. And so when the bar to get in is so low, you have a lot of clutter at the beginning, which means it can be a very, very good business after you've established yourself, but it's never tougher than it is at the beginning. So the other thing is, Brian, that I didn't have to face in the early stages of my career is there wasn't a pandemic. Right? I mean, there wasn't something going on where the industry shut down. And that's the other area where I was just very fortunate was when I got started. I've been a national FFA officer. I knew people in agriculture. And at that particular time, if there was anything you could say about ag, it was that we had a ton of meetings and not a lot of money to spend on speakers. And that was great because I wanted to speak often and I was really cheap. So I really fit that market, but again, it gave me the chance to put in the reps, to actually do what it takes. So that's the advice I would give you and other speakers is, hey, Randall, good to see you.
Randall.
One of the great guys in the world right there. Oh, you betcha. One of the great guys in the world right there. Will Rogers. Yeah. Randall and I have a special connection because, as you know, Randall is Will Rogers. He performs as Will Rogers. Mm-hmm. And my birthday is November 4th, which is the same day as Will Rogers' birthday. Huh. And so Randall and I have always felt a special connection because I share a birth date with Will Rogers. But yeah, that's the thing, Brian. You got a great message, and the whole thing is just keep on keeping on. And again, how do you grow? How do you push it? How do you expand? How do you? It's constantly working on that to break through.
Yeah, and breaking through is a different time for different people, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
that's the other thing.
And it never happens when you want. I mean, right? It's like I've had people say, when did you break through? And I'm kind of like, and it always depends too. I mean, wherever you are, I'll bet you Tony Robbins sits and thinks, boy, if I could just do this one more thing, So and that's probably what keeps driving him to keep doing events. I mean, it's not like he needs the money, right? He's driven to keep doing this. So there's never a point where you. I hope there's never a point that we go, oh, perfect. I've broken through. I'm done. No, you continue. You can, it's just like what I was saying earlier about the musicians that keep recording. Why do the Rolling Stones need to go back on tour? But they will. They're driven to entertain. They're driven to keep doing what they do and do it better. And I've read reports. They like, how do we make this year's show better than the shows ever before? So. We always have to continue to improve and get better.
No, that's good. So you talked a little bit about your audiences and how you help them stand out. But can you talk to us a little bit about how you do that?
Sure. I went through a period of tragedy in my life. I had been a full-time speaker for quite a while, and my wife Sherry developed ovarian cancer, and so I kind of had to shut the business down basically for a period of time and be the caregiver. I'd still go out and give a speech just to kind of keep food on the table, but it wasn't, I wasn't as active as what I'd been. And after she passed, I'm sitting here with 7 figures of medical bills to pay off and alone and depressed and. Which is a horrible combination when you live in fabulous Las Vegas, right? I mean, to be broke, alone, and depressed, that's a dangerous combo. And so I had to figure out how do I separate myself from the competition? What can I do to stand out? And as I started looking for resources, I couldn't find any. I mean, there were things like there's a book out in advertising called Differentiate or Die, but back. When I first started looking, there really wasn't, I couldn't find anything. So the blinding flash, the obvious for me was, if I needed this for my small business, what are the odds that others do as well? And I started researching it and working with organizations. And this was during the economic collapse in 2008. I wrote a book called Collapse of Distinction and got very lucky. There were several major newspapers that said it was one of the 10 best business books of the year. When the economy rebounded, I rewrote and updated the book and retitled it "Create Distinction." And then my latest book's called "Iconic," which kind of takes it to the next level. Yeah. But I just took the tragedy that had happened in my life and what I learned as a result of that, and have tried to share that and help other organizations and other individuals to learn how to do it as well. Nobody's loyal to a generic. I got remarried, right? And my wonderful wife Tammy, and one of the stories I tell in speeches is, I did not get down on one knee have that little box with the ring inside it, look up at her and say, honey, will you marry me? You're exactly like every other woman I've ever dated. I mean, you talk about how the differences, it's that we're attracted to differences. And so what we have to do, and the difference between different and distinctive is distinctive means something. It has significance to the customer. It has significance to people. And so that's what I want to create and what I want to help other organizations and professionals create.
That's interesting.
Thanks.
I love it. I love
Thank
it. And Randall has more to say here. So what's he say? Oh yeah, still trying to break through.
See, I think he has, but there you go. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Even after you break through, you're still trying to break through. So
Randall does pretty well, that's for sure.
He does. He's awesome.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So when you have conversations with meeting planners, so I assume you go through meeting planners to get
Sure.
things set up. You probably have speaking bureaus, but how do you position yourself as somebody that's going to be able to help their organization with whatever problem that they currently have, or maybe they need motivation, maybe they need inspiration? How do you position yourself?
Well, I think that changes over time, Ryan. But part of what we do now is to talk about the results that we've had with other organizations. I mean, we document some of the things that have happened with other organizations, as a result. One of the examples that we use is a great friend, a great client of ours in Fairmont Hotels. The Fairmont Scottsdale Princess now has the lowest turnover in the industry. They have the highest guest satisfaction scores in the industry. They are the most profitable of the hotels in the chain. They have, and they're just a great group that really took this message to heart. There's other groups, Volkswagen Australia, in terms of their customer satisfaction scores. So that's something that has to evolve over a period of time. But we have the evidence that show that yes, this does make a difference. It makes organizations more profitable, and the success of the books and the success of our clients hopefully helps point in that direction. I mean, and there's the other thing. There's a lot of options in today's marketplace. And so there are several ways to approach it, either from, here's the results that we've achieved in the past with other clients to, here's the message that I have and why your people need to hear it. I mean, that's, you have a situation with your personal story and with, your personal situation that is unique, and it's unique to you. And that's why what you're doing here is so really critically important, because you have a perspective that can't be duplicated. I mean, you're unique. And so, I think most of us tend to run from our own uniqueness. We feel safeness, similarity, when in fact it's the opposite that's true. As I said earlier, we're attracted because of our differences, not our similarities. And so but yet most of us feel uncomfortable about emphasizing the things that make us unique, and that's what we have to do to attract attention in a hyper competitive marketplace.
Wow. I just looked at our time, and we're already out of our time. I can't believe this is going by so fast. It's so good talking with you. And I hope we can get to another program set up where you can come back on again.
Would love to do it, Brian. That'd be great. Absolutely.
So one thing I want to maybe even challenge you on is another program that I do. It's called Radical Vision for Disabilities, and I talk to people about the people with disabilities, but I also talk about their caregivers. So you mentioned caregivers earlier, and I just think that might be a perfect way for you to serve other people. And so this channel is all about serving other people, right? Yeah. So it may be another way where you can serve.
The president of the Indiana Pacers, I'm a big Pacer fan. I've never met him, but his name is Kevin Pritchard, and I'm always inspired by him because he has a book out called Help the Helper. And one of the things that he's talked about as being important in his life is how do we help those who are helping others? And I just think that mission is so important, because the cancer with my late wife, it's the worst. What she went through was infinitely worse than what I had to deal with, but it's still the worst thing that ever happened in my life.
Yeah.
And you have this period of time where you just feel, and there's another thing, and as a guy, I'm a fixer, right? What's the problem? How do I fix it?
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't fix this, and I struggled because I didn't want to ask for help, because why would anybody pay attention to me when she's the one that's dealing with this, So it is a very unique and very challenging situation, and so I'm really glad to hear what you're doing for caregivers, because it is a very, very challenging thing to deal with and to go through. While I was doing it, it was incredibly challenging. I look back and I'm so grateful that I had the chance to do it, but it is a tough situation. So for all of those who are dealing with health challenges or disabilities, and for all of those who are caregivers, I mean, you are special people.
Wow, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Scott. Thank you for being on today.
Gosh, honored you to ask, Brian. Thank you.
This is great. I'm going to send you to the green room for a little bit, and then I'm going to close out the show, but I'm going to be back to the green rooms. So I'd love to have a further chat with you.
You bet. Sounds great. I'll be right here.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, Brian.
All right. Take care. Wow. 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 What a great show with Scott McKain. He really is phenomenal when it comes to that distinction and setting himself apart and understanding what sets him apart, but understanding what sets other people apart and how he can help other people. That's phenomenal. So thankful to have him on today. But we have more coming up this week. We have Cheryl Knowlton is going to be on tomorrow, and she's another great speaker. And then we have Joel Mull, another great, actually, he's a healthcare speaker. He'll be on Wednesday. And then Thursday will be David Beach, another leadership guy. He's a great friend, and I think it's going to be phenomenal to have him on. And then Friday we have Craig Adams from the Golden Gate Breakfast Club. Golden Gate as in San Francisco. So, I mean, people are coming from all over the country for this show, and I really appreciate all that they've done. So I want to make sure that, without any doubt, that you understand what makes you unique is important. And what makes you unique is really important for you to be aligned with their vision. So continue to do what you do. Reach out to me if you ever need anything else that I can help you with. But as always, keep one eye on the road.